Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today over Outsmarting the Scammer. If you'd just like to add your name, try age, and then where you live in the chat, get introduced, be good. We're very happy to have you on this fine Wednesday. Okay, and we're just gonna wait for you guys to all get logged on, and then we will start in just a few. And then to those of you who just joined, if you just want to go ahead and add your name, tribe, age, and where you live into the chat, get yourself introduced. We'd appreciate it. And welcome, welcome. And let's see, Iris, it looks like you raised your hand. If you have any questions, if you just want to add them to the chat, we can go through them as they come in. Thank you. Alrighty, y'all, and welcome, welcome. We're very happy to have you today. Welcome to our webinar, Outwitting the Scammer, Protecting Yourself and Your Community. Jill, if you could do the next. So, about our organization, this webinar is being hosted by NICOA, the National Indian Council on Aging. Just a few things about us to go over real quick. We're a 501c3 dedicated to advocating for the comprehensive well-being of American Indian and Alaska. We represent 575 tribes. Additional one was added. We made sure of that. We provide national leadership in aging services, employment training, and policy advocacy. A few more things about our organization. Just a thank you to Billy Tohi, our executive director. Another thank you to Scott Willie, our TARC director, who's on the call with us today from the Navajo Nation. And then I am Daniel Dolman. I'm the TARC data analyst. I'm from the Chickasaw Nation. Joel, if you could have the next slide, please. And then we have Joel Bell, our speaker today. Just a few things about Joel. Joel was born and raised in New Mexico. He's from here, of course. He likes to spend times with his family and chasing after his dogs, Wasabi and Mona Lisa. One is a French bulldog, one is a Rottweiler, I believe. Let's see. He from the finance field. His approach is rooted in integrity, transparency, thoughtful strategy, and always putting his client's goals. He's also a member of the Sandia Pueblo. They use community stewardship and generational impact. He's also involved with a few nonprofit organizations, including United Fit, Senior Citizens Law Office, Animal Humane New Mexico, and Paws and Stripes, of the Native Leadership Collective. Today, Joel going to be going over some of the essential tools for elders and caregivers to defend against financial. We'll go through red flags and predatory tactics, going to get an idea of how we can protect ourselves from, and you get hit then. So this is just our general agenda for today, just to kind of give you guys an idea. Going through it about. Looks like we're a little early today, but we can go ahead and jump in if everyone's good.
Yes, sir.
All righty, Joel, and baton on to you.
Okay,
You want to go
awesome.
ahead?
I will jump right into this. And here we are. Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate everybody being here today, and thank you for the introduction there, Daniel. Like Daniel said, my name is Joel Esquibel. I'm with Edward Jones as a financial advisor. I am from Sandia Pueblo, and I became a financial advisor because I have a passion for investing and helping people achieve their financial goals. And today we're going to be focusing on a topic that's becoming an increasing concern for investors and consumers, protecting yourself from fraud. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, fraud is becoming an increasing concern for all of us. You may know some friends or loved ones who've been targeted in fraud schemes, and those scammers' tactics are seemingly becoming more complex and prevalent. We do have some good news. There are red flags you can identify and basic steps that you can take to protect yourself and those you care about. This seminar will help you learn how to spot those red flags. Throughout our time together, I'll share a few stories to help illustrate some of the more common forms of scams we see and some resources you can use in case you or a loved one is targeted. Now, fraud may be more prevalent than you think. Consider this. According to the Javelin Strategy and Research Identity Fraud Study, identity theft affected 47 million US adults in 2024, totaling $43 billion in losses. The National Council on Aging says up to 5 million older Americans are abused every year, and the annual loss by victims of financial abuse is estimated to be at least 36.5 billion. Now, older Americans lose an estimated 28.3 billion annually to elder financial exploitation, according to a new report from AARP. The National Center on Elder Abuse finds that 1 in 10 older adults are victimized financially. However, the National Council on Aging states that there are only 1 in 24 cases that are actually reported. It's possibly because the victim might be too embarrassed. In addition, he or she might want to avoid calling attention to the situation to appear in control. Now, nearly 90% of abusers are people the victim trusts. According to the National Center on Elder Abuse, fighting abuse can be complicated due to the individual's personal fears and or family relationships. It's a not so subtle reminder that anyone can become the victim of fraud, regardless of age or health. And this is why it's critical to be prepared to take steps to protect yourself and those you care about. Plus, reporting fraud can help protect other people from being victimized by the same scammer. Now, there's a good chance you might be in here because you're concerned for a loved one or a friend who have been targeted by a scammer. Or perhaps you might learn some tips today to protect yourself and your loved ones from becoming victims of fraud. My goal is to empower you with information and resources to provide yourself and the ones you love. And hopefully, after our time together, you'll be prepared to act quickly and calmly to outsmart a scammer. So today we'll walk through 5 common fraud scenarios. I'll share several red flags you can use to help identify a scam. I'll then share some additional steps to help protect you and your loved ones, as well as resources available if you believe you've been targeted of fraud. And lastly, we'll do a fun exercise called Friend or Fraud, where you get to play detective and use some of the information that you learned during our time together. Now, the following fictitious scenario is similar to hundreds, if not thousands, of real life cases that happen each year, and it's outlined on page 4 of your participant workbook. Experts often refer to predatory financial schemes that target an individual's desire to find a romantic partner as romance scams or sweetheart scams. Now, let's consider a scenario where a 78-year-old woman meets a potential romantic partner online. The man is an independent contractor working on an oil rig. He befriends the woman via an online chat room. They develop a seemingly close relationship over a short period of time. He then tells the woman a hard luck story about a broken part and claims that he won't be compensated for his work until he pays to fix it. He further goes on to say that he can't access his own funds because he's on the rig and asks her to send money to a third party, claiming to reimburse her after he receives his paycheck. Here, there were some red flags that were present. The woman didn't verify the identity of the person contacting her. Now, this type of fraud occurs more frequently than you might think, and it comes in many forms. It can be especially hurtful to those who are more socially isolated. For anyone here who has lost a spouse or a close family member, or perhaps just moved to a new community, you can probably identify with how easy it is to feel alone. Scammers take advantage of loneliness by pretending to care and create a social bond, but the real motive is to steal. When romance scams targets a male victim, they often feature a young and attractive woman who needs assistance with obtaining an inheritance from her late father. Romance scams targeting female victims tend to involve a male oil worker or a construction worker who's trying to complete a job, or a military officer trying to get home from overseas or across the country. One tactic that's popular currently is when the significant other is a cryptocurrency trading expert. They tell the other person that they've made more than $1 million trading Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency online. They even show alleged bank statements as proof of their success. They advise that they can show them how they did it too, and they can become rich and live happily ever after together. They start off small, somewhere around a few $1,000s, and the expert shows them how to invest. Sure enough, in the first night, they do make money. This entices the person to invest even more. The more they invest, the more money they'll make. That's when the scammers go for the big hit, encourage their victim to invest 100,000 or more, or even go all in. The problem comes in when the person decides to make a withdrawal. That's when they're informed that they have to pay taxes on their profits. Unfortunately, they can't take the taxes from their profits in the account, and they're told that they have to be paid in new money. In some cases, the significant other invests money along with their victim to reach the higher investment levels that generate even higher returns and subsequently higher taxes. When that person can't come up with the tax payment, then they can't get their money, and their significant other pretends to get upset with them because they can't get their money back either. The issue is that's not how those investments work anyways. The scammers have created a fictitious company name with the fictitious results and rules. The significant other is in on the scam, and soon that significant other disappears and you're left with no money. Another tactic that's popular is for scammers to promise that they will live happily ever after with their victim. They offer to purchase a new home for the couple to live out their dream, with one caveat. They need the victim to pay the down payment up front and ask them to wire it to a third party that's unconnected to the actual real estate agency or the owner of the home. The scammer may use phone calls, emails, mail, social media, dating websites, other games such as Words with Friends to contact their victims. This fraud relies on trust. The scammer may lead you to believe that you have met in person before at a party or a social gathering. He or she may find out that you are passionate about and use that information to their advantage. They work to establish a rapport over several months before asking for money or controls for an urgent need that will tug at emotions. Often the scammer will say that he or she has exhausted all other resources and the victim offers their last hope. And these are just some examples. Keep in mind that financial predators often change the specific tactics that they employ, which makes it important to watch for general warning signs. You can protect yourself and the ones you love from this type of scam by remaining calm and doing some research. The best defense is not to pursue a friendship that has a red flag. Instead, find social activities and gatherings where you can meet people who are also searching for new friends. You should be wary of the people that you meet over the internet, even if it's through a trusted social media platform, dating site, or through a mutual friend. Scammers can hack into your friend's online information and claim to be that person. If a friend requests money, especially if he or she asks for it to be wired to a third party, you should ask for a copy of his or her driver's license or social security number. Our fraud investigation team can use that information to verify a person's identity. If the person refuses or cannot provide this information, chances are that he or she is not telling the truth. Remember, in this digital age, fraudulent photos and documents are easily created and altered, and often it's difficult to spot. With artificial intelligence or AI becoming more prevalent, it's even more difficult to pick up on fake documentation without some assistance. Another option is to simply to refuse to wire the funds. If this ends the relationship, then you'll know the friend only wanted you for your money. The scammer may become angry or try to make you feel guilty for refusing to help, but this will further confirm that you were targeted for fraud. Now, if you believe you or your loved one has been targeted, you should reach out to a trusted family member or friend, and you should remember that an unemotional listener can help provide some perspective and often detect things that might seem a little bit off. If you or someone you love makes the mistake of trusting someone who turns out to be untrustworthy, you should end that relationship. And while it might hurt in the short term, you can take solace in knowing that you've outsmarted someone who didn't really have your best interests at heart. At times, you should contact your local law enforcement agency. If you or your loved one was victimized, you should immediately notify the financial institution from which the funds were sent. And you should contact me immediately, especially if you believe an Edward Jones account may have been compromised. Again, don't be fooled. You should do your research, ask questions, and make sure you're talking with a genuine person and not someone trying to prey on your emotions to steal your hard-earned money. Now let's look at another scenario, collection fraud. Now, let's start with the story provided by our Edward Jones Fraud Investigations, which is made up of a dedicated group of professionals who investigate red flags and protect client information. This is a powerful resource that allows me as a financial advisor to advocate for you while remaining neutral when fraud concerns arise. If a red flag comes to the attention of a client, he or she can reach out to me at any time, and our fraud investigators will investigate. In addition, Edward Jones may reach out to clients if we detect unusual activity in your account. And by no means is this story unique. This type of situation plays out almost daily. You can follow along on your participant workbook on page 5. Terry received a call from an IRS agent who said she owed back taxes and needed to pay the outstanding amount immediately. Terry didn't recall receiving a notice in the mail and told the caller she believed he was in error. The caller then told Terry if she didn't pay the minimum amount on the outstanding debt, the police would be sent to arrest her. Terry was shocked. She didn't believe she owed the money, but even if it was a mistake, she wondered if she should make a payment to buy some time so that she can get the matter straightened out. The caller said he can accept payment information over the phone via credit card, or she could provide her checking account information. Terry considered her next move, and though the person claimed to be from the IRS, an organization that Terry recognized as having authority in the matter, something didn't feel right. She asked for a number to call the man back and then contacted a trusted friend. Fortunately, Terry recognized some red flags and gave no personal information. Now, this story could have ended much differently. The scammer could have collected a wealth of personal information, ranging from a social security number to banking or credit card information, if Terry had been less savvy about red flags. Should be especially wary if you don't know or can't verify the identity of the person contacting you. In this case, Terry's caller claimed to be from the IRS. However, there are several variations on this scam known as collection fraud. For instance, the caller may claim to be from your utility company and may threaten to cut off service if you refuse to make an immediate payment. The caller may even threaten to send a collector to your home or workplace. How can you or your loved one know if this is a scam? You should look closely at the payment request. Where do you usually send your tax payment? The answer should be the IRS or your state's Department of Revenue. However, a scammer might ask you to mail cash to a third party, give him or her your credit card number, or request that you buy a prepaid card and then read the numbers over the phone. You shouldn't trust caller ID. Collection fraud typically originates in a foreign country. Your caller ID may show a different area code from where the call is originating because scammers have access to sophisticated software that can mask this information. You should do your own investigation. IRS scams are popular, especially during tax season. At other times of the year, it could be your utility company claiming they haven't received payment and that they'll shut off your utilities, which creates a sense of urgency. If you get a call like that, you should simply hang up and call the company or the agency at the number that you know to be correct. And you shouldn't fall for scare tactics. A caller may see that he or she is sending someone to your house to arrest you or may even describe your house. This type of information is readily available on the internet. Chances are the scammer is not anywhere near you. If you believe you or your loved one has been targeted, resources are available to help you. The contact information for each entity I'll mention during our time together can be found in your packet. Also, there are some specific steps you or your loved one can take. You can reach out to a trusted family member or friend, report the incident to your state attorney general's office, contact the FTC for help. You can use the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as a resource. Above all, you should remain calm and remember that help is available. Scammers prey on the victim's emotions and want to create a sense of urgency. By being prepared, understanding how scammers operate, and knowing help is available, you and your loved ones can stay one step ahead of the scammers. Now let's look at another scenario. Lottery or sweepstakes scam. You'll find this scenario on page 6 of your participant workbook. You receive a call from the publisher's clearinghouse claiming that you've won their sweepstakes in a Mercedes. All you have to do is pay taxes on the fees of the winnings and tell no one after you received your prizes. Good news? Not necessarily. You're instructed to start the process of receiving your prizes by purchasing gift cards and reading the numbers off to them. You're told the next step is to mail cash via a one-day courier to individuals who allegedly work for PCH in order to cover the taxes and other fees. But you're skeptical and you contact me. And I advise you to contact PCH directly at the number listed on their website. PCH confirms that they did not make this phone call and winners never have to pay anything up front. They also advise you to check the list of winners on the PCH website to confirm that your name is not even on the list. You've likely encountered this scam in one form or another. It's often referred to as a lottery or sweepstakes scam. Common red flags include unsolicited contact, such as a letter, phone call, email, or social media message. The contact may seem official, perhaps a letter that appears to be on government or corporate letterhead, and the winnings could be anywhere from a few $100s to tens of millions. Many of the lottery or sweepstakes scams include the scammer claiming to be with Publishers Clearinghouse because the name resonates well with people. They're easy to debunk because PCH will never tell you up front that you're a winner. In one version of the scam, the victim is asked to cover the taxes before receiving any winnings. Another scenario involves a request for a bank account number so the winnings can be deposited. By getting this small amount of information, the scammer can remove money from a victim's account and potentially steal his or her identity. Another variation includes an overpayment. The individual receives a check more than the fee total, but is told to return a portion of the amount via electronic transmission or wire his or her financial institution. However, the check is usually counterfeit or stolen, leaving the victim with little chance of recovering the money that he or she sent electronically. Again, the red flags were present, including the contact is unsolicited or doesn't make sense, like you've won a lottery that you didn't enter, or you're coached not to tell anybody because it could jeopardize your winnings. This is always a red flag. You will likely be instructed to send money to a treasurer, banker, or another person connected to your winnings. However, these people are not connected to the lottery or sweepstakes. They're likely victims as well, being used as money mules. In addition to taxes and fees, a scammer may ask for money to get through customs or security for an anti-money laundering stamp. However, these are not real. You should take steps to protect yourself and those you love. Remember to treat all unsolicited offers with extreme caution. Should fully investigate the people and the companies involved and refrain from providing any personal information. Do not use the information provided by the contact to perform verification, but instead you should turn to an independent information source. For instance, you can contact me and I can help connect you with fraud prevention agencies. But most important, you should follow your instincts. When in doubt, don't send any money or personal information. And finally, you should remember you should never have to pay money to get money. And if you do believe you or your loved one have been victimized in a lottery or sweepstakes scam, you can contact the FTC for additional steps. Another common scam we see is the imposter scam. You can find this scenario on page 7 of your participant workbook. Here's the scenario. You get a pop-up on your computer claiming to be Microsoft, alerting you to a virus detected on your computer. It lists a phone number to call. You call the number and are told your computer has been hacked. The individual from Microsoft requests remote access and you give it to him. Well, inside your computer, he's looking for where you might have money, like your bank or Edward Jones, and secretly uploads malware and spyware to your computer. He warns things are much worse than he thought. He says it appears your accounts have been compromised and says he will need to get someone else involved. In this case, it's a fictitious representative from your bank. You are told your funds are in jeopardy and you will need to move them to a safe account while they investigate. They gain your trust and promise that you'll get your funds back as soon as the investigation has been completed. In the meantime, they coach you to lie about why you need to withdraw your funds. They say that your bank and Edward Jones may even be in on it, so you can't tell them the real reason that you need to move your funds. You're provided with a new account number and your name at another bank. And once you liquidate your funds, you're told to wire the money to your new protected accounts until the investigation is complete. Oftentimes, they'll stay on the phone with you the entire time so that you do everything correctly. Unfortunately, once you send the money, you've most likely lost it and cannot get it back. Now, variations on this scam start with an email or text from your bank stating that your funds are being withdrawn, a notice from UPS about a delivery you're not expecting, an email from Amazon about an order you didn't place, or some similar scenario. In these scenarios, they warn that someone has stolen your identity, and again, your funds are not safe where they currently are. Another version of this type of scam revolves around a benefit most, if not all, older adults receive: Social Security. It's not a surprise that scammers would target this common source of income for seniors. The scheme involves a scammer impersonating someone from the Social Security Administration to misuse your Social Security number or trick you into paying money. Criminals will use calls, emails, and letters, all to obtain your personal information. For instance, you receive a call from someone claiming to be with the Social Security Administration. The caller claims there's a problem with your Social Security number, and they may ask you for your number for verification purposes or insist that a payment is made to avoid the suspension of benefits. They go on to say that your Social Security number was tied to money laundering and that your benefits are in jeopardy. The caller goes on to say that you'll need to pay a fee so that everything can be straightened out. Not wanting to lose this critical source of income, you become flustered but realize something isn't right. You've never heard of someone getting a call directly from the Social Security Administration, and it doesn't feel right to have to pay a fee for a crime that you didn't commit. You take a breath and decide to ask the caller for his phone number so you can check on his claim. The call is immediately disconnected. In 2017, the Federal Trade Commission heard from 3,200 people about Social Security scams, and those people reported losing nearly $210,000. In 2019, just 2 years later, more than 35,000 people reported such scams, with losses of over $10 million. The scammers will try and exploit your fears. In addition to their trying to get you to provide your Social Security number, you might be asked to purchase gift cards and take pictures of their fronts and backs to send electronically via text or email. Alternatively, you might be asked to send a money order or cash to somebody. A recent twist on this scenario is when a scammer tries to get you to withdraw cash from your bank account for security reasons. Then you might be advised to purchase gift cards with that cash so the funds can be tracked and safeguarded. In some cases, you may be asked to send your payment to the scammer in the form of a digital currency like Bitcoin. Asking victims to make deposits to digital accounts or cryptocurrency is becoming a new trend used to perpetrate various types of fraud schemes. Another variation of this scam is when you get a phone call from law enforcement advising that your Social Security number was found at the scene of an accident. Drugs were also found at the scene and you are being investigated for trafficking. You're asked to pay fees in order to help clear things up. Now, the red flags remain similar to the scenarios we've already discussed: unsolicited contact, a sense of urgency, and being asked to send money to a third party. Scammers want you to act without thinking. Now, you did well to pause and ask for a return phone number. You should also report the incident to local authorities, the Social Security Office, or the Federal Trade Commission. And as with the other scenarios, there are clear red flags if you take the time to listen for them. You will never be asked to liquidate or move money from any Edward Jones accounts, and the Edward Jones fraud team will never contact you directly without your financial advisor or another representative of the branch on the line. The Social Security Administration will never call you. If there's a problem, they'll send a letter. The real Social Security Administration should already know your Social Security number and not have to ask for it. And you'll never have to pay any legitimate taxes or fees with a gift card or in Bitcoin. Gift cards are for gifts, and Bitcoin is not a generally accepted form of currency for taxes and fees at this time. What you should do is simply hang up the phone or do not call a number from a pop-up on your computer. You should look up the legitimate company and call them at a nationally known number. If you've already given someone access to your computer, you should disconnect from the internet and take your computer to a reputable repair shop to have it cleaned. Simply turning off your computer or changing passwords might not help. If someone says that they're from Edward Jones or your bank, you should hang up and call them at a number that you've received from your bank or brokerage statements to verify the story. If a message was left, don't call back on the number they provided. You can look up the real phone number for your local Social Security Administration and either call them or stop in to ask whether they were trying to contact you. If you provided your Social Security number or think it has been accessed illegally, you should contact your local Social Security Administration office so that they can place an alert on your number, and this will also make sure that your benefits don't get diverted. The next is going to be a grandparent scam that we'll go over. Scammers often use any personal information that they can gather to help validate their story and form an emotional bond with the victim. The more personal information, the more effective that they can be. That's what makes this next scenario, known as the grandparent scam, so difficult for the targeted person to decipher. Now I'm going to read through a fictional script of a call between a grandfather and an unidentified caller. You can follow along on page number 8 of your participant workbook and consider how little information it would take for the scammer to validate the story and convince the grandfather that his grandson is in trouble and needs help. Caller: Hi, Grandpa. It's your favorite grandson. Can you guess which one? The grandpa: Is this Bobby? Yes, Grandpa, it's Bobby. Do you remember where I go to school? Of course, you go to state. How's school? Well, school is all right. I'm really sorry to call you about all this, but I'm in a little trouble. I was at school and some friends and I decided to drive to Mexico for spring break. We were out last night and got into a car accident. When the police searched the car, they claimed they found drugs. Now I can't get back into the country unless I pay a fine. We're out of cash and my ATM card won't work down here. Can you please talk to the public defender to work this out and I can pay you back when I return? Please don't tell Mom and Dad. I'm scared. Grandpa, I just want to get back home. I'm handing the public defender the phone now. Hello, sir. Your grandson could be in serious trouble, but I could get him and his friends out of jail if they pay a simple fine. Here's the account information where you can wire the money. Now, Grandpa finished the conversation with the caller, but it just didn't feel right. He called his Edward Jones financial advisor, who in turn contacted fraud investigations. Fraud investigations advised Grandpa to contact a family member at a number he knew to be correct. It turns out that Bobby was fine at school. In this case, Grandpa was almost convinced. He believed the caller knew his grandchild's name and where he went to school, even though he was the one to provide that information after being prompted by the caller. You can see how little information it can take to validate a scammer's claim. Again, the common red flags are there. The request from Bobby was immediate in nature, like he was in trouble in Mexico and can't leave the country. Now, there's several variations of this scam. For example, the scammer could pose as a child, nephew, niece, or other relative. The emergency can vary from an arrest to an auto accident in a foreign country. Often, the scammer will ask for money to be wired immediately. More elaborate versions may involve a third party posing as a friend, an attorney, or a public defender. And if you were to investigate, you would find that you are wiring money to an address that isn't easily verified. For example, fraud investigations investigated a case where a grandson was supposedly arrested in one country, yet the bond payment was to be wired to another country. The scammer may plead with the grandparent not to tell his or her parents, effectively reinforcing the emotional bond and making the grandparent feel as if he or she is the only person that can help. Once you send money, there's almost always a request for more. The situation becomes more critical. For instance, the other driver or a passenger in the car needs surgery, but the doctor won't operate unless he's paid cash up front. You might even get a fictitious email from the surgeon, but you'll be instructed to send money to a person rather than the hospital. What should you do if this happens to you? First, remain calm, then simply call your loved one at a number that you know to be correct to check the story. Now let's look at some other red flags. There are many other forms of fraud and types of scams that you or your loved ones may encounter. And while we won't have time to go into them today, some red flags can help you identify whether you're being targeted. Here's a recap of the red flags that I mentioned earlier, and feel free to take notes on page 9 of your participant workbook. Identity verification. In this age of digital contact and easily manipulated information, identity verification is more important than ever. Remember to use objective sources to verify claims. In other words, don't use the phone number given to you by a suspicious company to verify that the company exists. Rather, use a directory or the internet to find a number to call the company back. A simple internet search can sometimes, but not always, uncover obvious clues that a scam is taking place. Immediacy of request. This is often a red flag. Scammers use urgency to try to impair their victim's ability to reason through a scenario. They also prey on emotions, especially fear or empathy, to manipulate a victim. Education and calm reasoning are the scammer's greatest enemy. If something sounds suspicious, investigate. It doesn't add up, part one. You can't win a lottery you haven't entered, and the IRS won't demand payments by phone. You'll also never receive phone calls from the FTC, the Attorney General's office, the US Treasury, US Customs, or any government organization for that matter, especially if they're requesting money. If the request doesn't make sense, chances are it isn't legitimate. It doesn't add up, part two. You should be wary if the payment needs to be in cash or wired to a third party. This is especially true if the payment is supposed to be made to a company, an individual, or a geographic area different from where the incident in question took place. A request to wire money, especially to a contact in a country other than where the friend is located, is a big red flag. If an account was set up for you, call that institution to verify. If you're ever asked to pay for anything with a gift card, that's a scam. Remember, gift cards are for gifts, not to make payments. It doesn't add up, part three. If account statements for your credit or debit card don't arrive when they should, you receive a check for no apparent reason, or you're asked to pay money to get money, be on the alert. And a vow of secrecy. If the contact begs you not to tell anyone, especially family or friends, you should be especially wary. Now, these are, of course, only a few of the red flags that can help identify a scam. If something raises your suspicion or seems too good to be true, several resources, including the ones that I mentioned earlier, are available to you. Now, in addition to knowing the red flags, you can take common steps to protect yourself from certain types of fraud. Here are a few tips I recommend, which are included on page 10 and 11 of your participant workbook. You should never provide personal information on the phone, through the mail, email, or over the internet unless you know the request is legitimate. You should shred financial and other personal documents before disposing of them. Many businesses offer electronic delivery, which can reduce your paper trail. Don't carry your social security card or write your social security number on a check. Provide only if absolutely necessary, or ask to use to be an identifier. Typically, you're required to provide your social security number only when dealing with a law enforcement or government agency, opening an account with a bank, brokerage, or other financial services firm, or an insurance company. A background investigation or a credit check is required while seeking employment, obtaining health care. Some states require social security number disclosure in other cases, so you should always ask why your number is required. And you should maintain confidential documents in a secure location in your home. You should be cautious online. Keeping your computer security and antivirus software up to date. Don't click on pop-up ads or links in unsolicited emails. Don't use an obvious password such as your birth date, your mother's maiden name, or the last four of your social security number. You should protect your credit information. Periodically inspect your credit report. The law requires the major nationwide consumer credit reporting agencies like Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion to give you a free copy of your credit report each year if you request it. Go to annualcreditreport.com for a free report. You can place a fraud alert on your credit reports. This entitles you to a free copy of your credit report and tells creditors to follow certain procedures when opening accounts in your name or making changes to your existing accounts. For an initial 90-day fraud alert, you should call the 3 credit agencies that I've included on page 12 of your workbook. And you should be diligent with compromised accounts. You should close any accounts that have been tampered with or established fraudulently. Call the security or fraud department of each company where an account was opened or changed without your approval. You should follow up in writing with copies of supporting documents. Use the ID theft affidavit at the Federal Trade Commission website to support your written statement. I've included the FTC web address on page 11 of your participant workbook. You should file a report with law enforcement agencies to help with your creditors that may want a proof of the crime. You should ask for verification that the disputed accounts that have been closed and the fraudulent debts discharged. Keep copies of documents and records of your conversations about the theft. Now, again, I've included these recommendations on pages 10 and 11 of your participant workbook, and these are not exhaustive. However, taking these steps for yourself and your loved ones can help you have more control and preparation if you are targeted by scammers. To recap, several agencies exist to sniff out different types of fraud, but you have other tools and resources available to you as well. Don't forget friends and family. If you have trusted friends or family members that you can rely on, those individuals can provide perspective and unemotional input. And though the internet isn't always reliable for verifying information, often it can be used as a resource to uncover more widespread fraudulent activity. A simple search of a person's or company's name, especially combined with the word scam, can sometimes yield very helpful results. While they shouldn't be used as a sole source of research, using independent, reliable sources of information can be helpful in identifying a scam artist. It's important to evaluate the security measures provided by the companies you choose to work with, especially when it comes to those connected to your finances. For instance, we have tools at Edward Jones to help identify the scammers and the experience to analyze the situation to determine what's going on. Also, I'd like to point out that I can be a resource to you. It may be difficult to recall which agency to call when a certain type of activity takes place. I can connect you with our fraud investigations who can help connect you with some of those agencies that I mentioned during our discussion. I've listed the agencies on page 12 and 13 of your participant workbook. These include your state attorney general's office, the Federal Trade Commission, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Better Business Bureau, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, your local law enforcement agency, guidestar.org, which you can use to research nonprofit organizations, your financial institution, and of course, my local office in Edward Jones Fraud Investigations. Also in your packet, I've included information about 4 of the scenarios that we discussed, which were collection fraud, grandparent scam, romance, relationship scam, lottery and sweepstakes scam. But you'll also find information on 4 scenarios that we weren't able to cover: the computer intrusion scam, credit and debit card fraud, check or overpayment fraud, and the inheritance scam. In addition, I've included the flyer Protecting Your Personal Information, which outlines how Edward Jones protects your information. Remember that I'm always available to share the resources that we've discussed today to help answer these questions. Now, let's go ahead and walk through a few fictional scenarios, and I'll ask you as a group here online, just in the chat, if you believe the situation is friend or fraud. Then we'll discuss some potential red flags and steps you'd take to investigate or alleviate the situation. So here's the first scenario. You can follow along on pages 14 through 16 of your participant workbook. Now, your elderly neighbor, Joe, tells you a man knocked on his door yesterday collecting money from a food pantry. Although he couldn't remember the name of the pantry, He remembered the man said he was part of the Good Neighbor Food Group. When Joe asked the man if he had a business card or any literature about the organization, the man said he would return with more information. Joe asks, "What you think?" Now, do you all think that that's friend or fraud? Quickly in the chat box, I see fraud there. And yeah, no wrong answers here either. Were there any red flags that we're seeing? Like unsolicited contact, no way to positively identify the man in question. There's no identifying indicators. He didn't have a name tag or a t-shirt or literature. And what steps could you take to investigate the situation? Would be searching for the organization on the internet, contacting the Better Business Bureau or GuideStar to get some further background information on the organization. Here's the second scenario. You receive a phone call from your credit card provider's client fraud investigation unit. The caller asks you to verify your account information, including your full credit card number. Friend or fraud? Yep, sounds like fraud as well. And were there any red flags that we're seeing on there? Again, unsolicited contact. There's no way to positively identify the caller in question. And then rather than giving you the last four of the account number, they're asking you to provide your full credit card number. Now, what steps could you take to investigate this situation? This is an easy one. You can hang up and call the company back on a phone number that you have on the back of your credit card or your billing statement and not the number that they called you off of. Now, here's the last scenario. You receive a letter from a law firm that includes a gas bill dated 6 months ago and marked past due. The letter states that you are delinquent with payment and that your natural gas will be shut off in 3 days unless you make an immediate payment via credit card or wire to the law office. This is the first and only notice that you have received, and to your knowledge, your gas bill is paid up. Friend or fraud? Yep, sounds like another fraud again. And any red flags that you're seeing right off the bat? A third party is requesting those funds. This is the first notice that you've received, and it's an urgent notice. Now, what steps could you take to investigate this situation? You could contact the gas company to verify that the account's paid in full. You can disregard the notice altogether. You can research the law firm on the internet or via the Better Business Bureau, and you can file a report with the FTC. Now, we've covered quite a bit of ground today, so let's review a few of the items that we discussed. First, fraud comes in many forms, and scammers are getting more complex in the way that they approach their targets, especially in the areas of newer technology. Remember that things are not always as they seem. If you are approached by an unknown individuals or confronted with an unsolicited offer, remain calm. Emotion is a scammer's friend. Seek independent sources to verify identities and claims. If you are pressured to act now, this might indicate a red flag. When in doubt, don't send any money or reveal any personal information. Also, remember that you have a wealth of information and resources available to you to help prevent fraud and what to do if you or a loved one has been targeted. I can connect you to our fraud investigation teams if fraudulent activity has taken place. Again, I've included contact information in your participant workbook from any of the agencies and resources that I've mentioned. If you or someone you know does become the victim of a scam, please report it or encourage them to report it to one of the organizations referenced previously and the relevant financial institution. It is a critical step in helping stop these criminals. And I hope the information and resources that I've shared today during our time together have left you feel empowered. You now know some of the red flags, steps to take, and how to protect yourself and the loved ones you have, and some of the resources available to help if a scammer tries to take advantage of you. At this time, I'd like to open the floor up for any questions. Go ahead and feel free to use the chat feature for any questions that you may have, and we'll kind of go from there and answer out any questions.
Joel, while our audience is thinking about their questions, I wanted to ask a question just to help start the conversation about your presentation. Thank you so much. You did a wonderful job on covering some topics around fraud, and it's really great to hear how our audience can recognize these different topics within their conversations with potential fraud. So in statistics, um, like most, abuse happens by people we know. What are some early signs that that you find helpful, or that you would see for friends or family members when they start to overstep their bounds with people's finances?
Well, I mean, kind of like mentioned out in the presentation, a lot of times fraud is occurring by people that you know and trust. And so sometimes it's a little bit difficult to want to cut off some of those relationships, or even I've had situations where people don't want to believe that somebody that they know and trust would do that to them, and so they almost view it as, they kind of fall into that victim scam, because they now, like I said, are presented with information to their nephew, or like I said, their loved one is saying, I need you to do this, I need you to send me money. And I think it's particularly hard, difficult, because you want to gauge where that line is drawn, and it's going to be different from everybody, but everybody's going to be different in what regard to how much you want to be able to help somebody else. And so I know helping is something that we all want to be able to do, but it's just making sure that we are actually helping the people that we mean to help. And so, just because you have a good heart doesn't mean that you should be helping fund somebody else's vacation because they want to scam you. And so, I think, yeah, it's going to be different from everybody, but I mean, gut instinct and just ask questions. I mean, make sure that you're looking at those red flags, and especially I've seen it dozens of times. If somebody does have a scenario where somebody's telling them, well, don't share this with anybody, or go to the bank and don't tell anybody why you're taking money out. That's what we're trained on. We're trained to ask these questions to prevent those scams from happening. And so it's, yeah, like I said, just ask questions, just use the resources available. Don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. Um, Go to those trusted resources, and don't just be trusting of everybody. So
Hey, Joel, do you mind if I jump in for a sec?
yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So just a quick notice to everyone. Thank you so much, Joel, for your wonderful presentation. It was really good, very insightful. So just a reminder to everyone, we have our next webinar, May 13th, 2026. It's same time, 10 to 11 a.m. This one's covering exploring hospice and Native communities with Dr. Katie Nelson. So just make sure to keep an eye out on your email. We will be sending out reminders here at the end of the month. Thank you so much.
Awesome,
And
awesome.
and if does anyone have any more questions, please just add them to the chat.
Yeah, and I see that that Iris Andreas, you had reached out there about possibly hosting a presentation on that topic as well to the reservation. Would definitely love to help in any way that I can. Most of the time I'm doing presentations in person as well. So whether it's in person or if we want to do another webinar, my contact information is up there now on the screen. And so yeah, feel free to reach out and yeah, I'd love to help in any way that I can. I'm doing a lot of work within the reservations, and I think me being from Sandia has also just allowed me to have a certain passion, not only professionally but personally, to help our people. So anything that I could do to be a resource.
Great. Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you so much to our attendees for showing up today. We appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you for our 2026 spring webinar series. And like Daniel had mentioned, that we will be sending out an announcement for our next webinar series. Thank you so much. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you and have a good day.